Hey everybody, it is now January 29th. My name is Lisa Garrow and I am the founder of Candy Event Consulting. And I have started something just as of a couple of months ago called Candy's Short Guides to Learning. And what this is a chance for me and you to be having conversations. Typically, I would be live with you. We would be having a great discussion about some topic. So this idea of you guys planning and promoting your own events, you might be a business owner, an entrepreneur, maybe you are somebody that is working in the community and maybe leading a volunteer team and doing your own events. The idea of coming together and having discussions is so important to me. Having not just some great learning, which is really the idea of our guides and these live sessions and the booklets that come along with this, but you guys actually having that input with each other to be able to say, this is where I'm having trouble, and this is what matters to me. And what about this area? How can I get over this hump that I've just been really struggling with? That's what's important to me. Unfortunately, for this session, for Candy's short guide to preparing to plan, that was planned actually for this morning, didn't happen as a group. I wasn't able to get on live this morning, but I wanted to make sure, because I think this topic is so incredibly important that I think it's still one of those areas that I want to make sure that we're having this discussion about. It's going to be a little bit shorter. Usually these are a full hour and there's lots of back and forth. But I want to go through the material because I think that as you start to think of your event planning and what does it actually mean to back up and prepare to plan, I think you're going to get a lot of value in just doing some of the things that we'll be talking about today. But also, I think that you're going to start to highlight some areas with your team that you might want to be bringing up that really could be not just a point of discussion, but a point of getting through some of that fog, really getting over some of those crazy things that sometimes really gum up the process. Or maybe there's some dynamics that are not just slowing you down, but maybe you've just run off the road in your planning. That step back and make sure that you're caring for the people, caring for your projects, and understanding that clarity is really at the heart of planning well and getting where you want to go. So before we start, I want to tell you a little story, and I bet you'll guess who this story is about, but it really speaks to the idea of why sometimes we start out really strong. We just get out of that start gate and we're ready to go and we're really excited. But then there becomes this point where we're not sure why we're doing what we're doing. And you guys might have felt that in the past as well. So this idea, it's called actually the story. This story is called A Planner's Tale. There was once a young event planner with the greatest of intentions. She was the one out of the whole class that would love to get both ideas and people moving in one direction. She wanted to make things happen. She lived in this great world of possibility, and there was no stopping her when the beauty of a team organized around a common goal. She had the ideas, she had the skills, and she had this fire to gather people together. She was able to communicate her vision to these teams, and she planned gatherings and children's parties and community concerts and committee meetings and celebrations and even somber occasions. There was nothing that she didn't want to get her hands into to start bringing those ideas and some of those plans together. She always was there with her contagious curiosity, her ideas, and her color-coded clipboards. Well, the day came. Okay, it wasn't just one day, and it wasn't just 1 week or 1 month, or it just folded into months and months that turned into a couple of years where she felt like there was just no more feeling that she could do this work. The skills weren't there. The ideas weren't coming as easy as they were before. And the fire that she had inside for bringing people together just seemed to kind of fizzle out. This passion for event planning maybe wasn't exactly what she thought it might be. She had done this for so many years. This was part of things that she knew that she had the skills, the ideas, and the fire at one point, but maybe this was the time to let it all go. She loved this work, but bringing people together now felt like a chore. What happened? What happened and what could be done to find that spark again? Was it even important to find the spark again? This story that I'm telling you right now is the story of when I was in my teen years, growing up into my 20s. I was living in Winnipeg. My family was incredibly involved in the community. We were planning all sorts of community events. We were working with the community center and the school, and we were working out of a church there. And there were so many things that were happening all at once. And it was really, there was just a lot of need, but at the same time, there were so many cool connections, not only that were possible, but that were already happening. And I wanted to get my hands in the pot. And by the time I was 24, I really felt like the road that I was on as an event planner, I don't know that I really called myself an event planner at the time, but this road was that I was on was starting to get super foggy. And I would guess that I'm not the only one that sometimes feels this. But as you're moving along, you think that you're kind of going in the right direction. You're feeling good, you're connecting well with others. But then there's this time in your planning life or when you're working with teams that you're just not feeling it anymore. And you're pulling back, but you're not exactly sure why. Or you're starting to make decisions that sometimes feel like maybe they're not the best decisions, or you're questioning maybe even your skills. Maybe I don't have what it takes to do this work. Maybe the ideas aren't happening the way that they could be happening. Maybe this fire, you're just feeling like, well, maybe that was just a fluke. Maybe I'm not passionate about this. Maybe there's something else that I should be searching for. All sorts of reasons, and maybe you guys have felt this as well, but there can be all sorts of reasons why we now choose to either back off or get out of the whole game altogether. So sometimes when we're thinking about not just that we've lost the skills, but what would it take to skill up? When we are like, oh, I just can't come up with those creative ideas. It's really tough sometimes when we have these ideas, but then they're just not working out. Deadlines kind of come and go, and the ideas don't feel like they're really landing. Or maybe this fire, maybe there's something about what you thought passion was. And if you grew up, or even if you are new to the industry, or you are starting to plan events because it's now part of your portfolio, there might be a time where you're feeling like, I just am not feeling this. The fire inside, that passion for what I do, it just feels like I'm just checking off the boxes and just doing the bare minimum just to get by, or just to get paid, or just to get to that deadline to make that event happen. The fire doesn't feel like it's there. This story is my story. What I told you, it was my story of really coming to a point of really deep and confusing burnout at the time. So when I was in my early 20s, yes, that is a time of really, for many of us, where we're really idealistic. We feel like things should be a certain way, and we have to navigate through that and understand that maybe life isn't what it was all cracked up to be anyway. But I truly believe, no matter where you are in your planning journey, that this fog can happen all through our career. It isn't just about starting out and then being disillusioned and feeling like there's something maybe you just didn't get at the beginning. And now you've got to take a completely different road to something else. There might be a way for us to find our way through that fog, to maybe find our way to a clearer understanding of ourselves, and that we're ready for this when we ever do feel like maybe our skills aren't where they should be, maybe our ideas aren't coming as quick, or they're just not feeling as exciting as they used to. And that passion, this fire, this fire is something that all through our career life, all through planning, even if you're planning one event, the reality is that one event, you might feel all of this within one project. it doesn't have to mean that this is a whole career path either. Because when we get foggy and we're not clarifying with our team where we're going and why we're going there, we will find the frustration and the bad decisions, or the not as good as you could make decisions over here. You're going to maybe roll off into the ditch. And I grew up in my teen years learning to drive in Manitoba. And when you are on a Manitoba snowy country road and you go off that ditch, and this was in the time of no phones, and we didn't have cell phones back then, and you basically had to navigate your way back home or find a very kind stranger that would take you to the nearest town. There are things that happen here when we're unclear that can really be devastating. It might just be sort of a bump in the road, or it just might be a slippery section. But this can either throw our planning off track, or it can take us out of the game completely. So that's why this session is so important, and why my fire is so strong for really helping you guys not just get the planning done and checking off all the boxes, but finding the fire and really getting clear that you can make it through this foggy time, but that there is something on the other side of this. So we want to take a look at, why do we want to get clear? So let me share that with you. I've got 5 points here that I think, when I talk about helping you get clear in your planning, these 5 things are going to really help you. So this idea down here, so if we're talking about the fog, the frustration, the things not going right, we all get it, right? Like, there's this place where we kind of feel stuck, or we're working incredibly hard and we're not seeing those results that we would have loved to see. So this idea of getting clear, there's 5 things. Number 1, finding focus and a sense of direction that will keep you on course even in uncertainty. So can you imagine taking your team through this fog? So when things are not really clear, you're not sure really what's going on, this idea of finding focus and a sense of direction within this is so critical. Because if we have no sense of direction, really, like if you're talking about being in the bush or hiking, and if things are foggy and you're not sure, you kind of get turned around. The idea of having a compass, the idea of knowing where to find the stars, the idea of for some of you maybe that are nature lovers, which way is the wind blowing, and the trees kind of look a certain way, that will indicate that that would be north, or whatever it is. So this idea of really being able to find a sense of focus and direction will keep you on course. So that's one really important point on why it's so important to get clear. The second one is this feeling of a strength of alignment when you work from a place of passion and conviction. So when I was first starting out as a planner, this is in like the 80s, a long, long time ago, but this idea of having a fire, I was adopting a lot of the fire that I was seeing around me. I know that I had a lot of things that I was bringing to the table, a lot of, not just a passion, but a lot of great skills and ideas. But this idea, the number 2 reason to get clear, is that we need this feeling of strength and alignment, that we are working from a place of purpose and conviction. So when it gets tough, not only do the tough get going, but I believe that when it gets tough and we are working from a place of strength and alignment, we will just dig deeper, not just wider. It's not like we're asking for all sorts of other opinions, but we're going to get really, really strong and aligned, and we're going to be working even more so from this place of purpose and conviction that we need to get through this. And why? Let me tell you why. Because this destination that we're getting to, whatever that destination is for you, is so important that you make it through this fog so you can do this work. And events are this amazing, like I've already said, this amazing way for people to connect. And there is, honestly, I don't care if you're doing events online, if you're doing them face-to-face eventually again, if you've got some kind of a hybrid event happening. Why do we do that? We do that because these connections will help create vibrant communities. They're going to connect people so that help can happen. So if somebody needs something, someone else has something, there's that exchange. This event might be a product launch, and you're going to be able to tell people about what it is you're creating, and you're going to be making money for your company, which then feeds back into the community. You bet that matters. That's why we have a fire for event planning. It's not just so that we can throw a great party, all go home, and then be in our own space again and never see each other again. In my world, and the idea of being a connection strategist, which you guys all could be as well, is that this final area just leads us back on that journey. So this area, it's like a stop on the way of creating relationships that matter to your business or your organization, or maybe your group, a community group. This event here matters definitely. And everything leading up to that event, but then also leading beyond it. So the second point of why does clarity matter? I'll repeat it again. Feeling the strength of alignment when you work from a place of purpose and conviction will really allow you to get through this and choose clarity so that you can make this happen. Okay, number 3. So we've got making better decisions that matter more and connect back to your event planning goals. So the idea, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this later, but the idea of really making better decisions, if you are in the fog, if you are feeling frustrated, or your team isn't communicating well, or there's some kind of dynamic here happening on this road that you are feeling like things are either getting gummed up, maybe there's miscommunication, maybe there's actually fighting within the team, maybe there's also decisions that are being made around budget, or around who's in the room, or around how do you communicate with your guests, or how you promote your events. How can we be making good decisions if we are right in the middle of the fog, if we can't even see the the nose on our face, like my dad used to say? How can we actually get clear? Clarity matters because we need to make better decisions. They need to matter more to the end result. And you need to connect back to your event planning goals. So, way over here, when you guys started and you're like, let's plan this event. I think this is a great idea. You kind of, put the star on it and everyone approves it and it's good and you've got your budget for it. But you have to really reconnect back. Part of that is reconnecting back to your fire. Part of that is reconnecting to why this event. Why does it matter? Why do you want to spend all that time and money, energy, sleepless nights, everything that it takes? Obviously, it's fun. But in this, why would you choose that? You have to be able to look back and say, we're making decisions because of where we started, why it matters. We're also making decisions because this event depends on us getting really clear and back to the point. You got that? So number 4, why is it important that we get clear? So pushing through, when you are in this fog, remember, this is where frustration and team maybe challenges are happening over here. Number 4 is pushing through doubt and uncertainty to create a culture of commitment and collaboration. So can you imagine you guys are feeling like this fog now has become really heavy. There's ice on the ground. If you're in Canada and you drive over, we drive quite often between Alberta and BC, and I tell you the number of times we've gone in winter over Christmas, where the roads are really packed and often icy, and you see these big semi trailers, like they're up, they really don't even make it down the hill because now they're on their sides, and everybody's trying to avoid it as they're on these slippery roads. This can be a very intimidating, and sometimes you're questioning why we even started on this trip in the first place. I tell you, I've been there myself. And this idea of really pushing through your doubt and your uncertainty to create a culture of commitment and collaboration, this is where you say, I'm not alone in this. This is going to be a challenge for us. And when I told you my story of planning and everything was great, What happened, do you guess? What happened when I started to feel like my skills weren't enough, feeling like the ideas weren't happening the way that I was used to, or they weren't making sense in the context anymore, and the fire was starting to go out? What do you think I did? If you were there. If you were there to answer, I bet you would guess that I start pulling away. And many of us do that because when we're feeling unclear and we're feeling like this is quite a mess over here, we start to doubt our skills. We start to doubt our ideas and the value of those ideas. And we start to doubt that we ever really had that fire in the first place. So, this idea of really taking yourselves, we've started this event, now we're kind of getting cloudy and we're not sure, we're really unclear about why we're doing this in the first place. Pushing through doubt and uncertainty will happen when we really choose to take the time to get clear. And there have been times, and if you live, I live in Calgary. So there are many times that we get a dump of snow. Um, it's sloppy on the roads because we get Chinooks over here. So we might get a lot of snow. This doesn't really happen in Manitoba as much, but we'll get a dump of snow. It'll warm up the next day. Things are really sloppy. There's tons of snow, like sloppy snow on the ground. And then people kick that up as they're driving. They'll kick it up onto your windshield if you're behind them. And you've got to make sure that you've got that windshield wiper juice to get that dirt off of your windshield, or you're going to have to really pull over quick and make sure that you get some snow on there if you don't have enough windshield washer juice. But you need that clarity so that you are now certain of where you're going again and that you're not going to hit somebody, obviously, on the way. So this idea of it can be managed just because you're having some doubts on your planning, even on your plan. If you're saying, I'm not sure if this is really what we put in motion here, I'm not sure that that actually makes sense anymore. Why don't we get clear? Why don't we take that step back and say, okay, maybe there are some things that we need to let go of, but we still believe in the goal. So it means that we've got to take the time, get clear, push through that doubt and uncertainty, and make a commitment to it, but not just pull back like what I had done when I had lost sort of the fire for all of this. I just started to retreat. We need to start to commit not just to ourselves and to our plan. We need to recommit to our teams, and we need to find ways to collaborate, because the idea of pushing through doubt and uncertainty, we might need a different perspective. Might need somebody to say to us, you know, that little piece over here that we were planning, I think that's what's getting us really hung up. And if we were able to take that out of this plan, I think we could move forward. So this idea of bringing in other voices, bringing in people that care very much about where you're going and they understand where you want to go, but they really allow us to have the conversations, to collaborate with them, and to find the strength and really that assurance that we're on the right track to help move through this. By the way, that's also what we do here at Candy, is really help you in the middle of all of that to try to get clear and find that confidence and shake off the doubt and just say, we're going to take a look at this. We're going to start to figure out, what kind of strategy do we need to move through the fog to get to where you want to go. Little commercial there. So number five, getting clear here is creating consistency for your people and projects, because you're going to get you're going to get increased engagement and increased efficiencies. So getting really clear, it doesn't mean that you might have to shed some things here, like we were just talking about. Maybe not everything is working. Maybe that's causing some of the fog or some of the frustration or some of the bad decisions or difficult things that are happening here. But this idea of creating a consistency for your people and your projects will increase the engagement and the efficiencies moving forward. So this idea of getting clear and creating consistency. So I want to show you here how every event has step by step. You kind of work through a series of what I call milestones. So you really want to start to create a rhythm in your planning. And when you get clear, that is even easier for you to be able to come through the fog, through this frustration, and create some kind of consistency so you can make it to the goal. And what this does, it's actually quite beautiful when this happens well, because you are going to start to see your people recommit to what we're now talking about, these milestones, recommit, buckle in, get ready to go. Because once you've really come through the fog, you've set your path to where you want to be, that consistency is going to create a momentum, which is where things get really exciting, that will actually start to engage your team in a deeper way. And in any relationship, I talk so often about just general relationships in the context of event planning because it really matters. So, this idea of really having consistency for your people, wouldn't you, as somebody working on, let's say, an event plan, or if you're in a relationship and maybe you have one chance to connect with them here, but you really don't know when you're going to connect again, and then you might sort of bump into someone over here, but then you're not sure, and then you have a really great meeting over here, but there's no consistency or rhythm to building that relationship. The same thing is with our teams. So if you want them to be truly engaged, especially if you're going through a fog, you need to step up, be that leader, make sure that you know and they know that you are committed to the goal, but that it matters that you start to set some step-by-step milestones to get you there. And that only happens when we really make a point of getting clear with our event planning process. So it's not just about the goal. This is about really creating that consistency in this process to get you here. Clarity is really important. So I would love if you want to add anything to the chat box below. I would love to get your feedback on where you maybe have planned an event, you've come through this fog, or might even be in the fog, and what of what I've just said in those 5 points might actually get you to this goal, and why clarity you think really matters for you moving forward. The whole purposeful planning that I talk about is about really not just getting clear again for the goal for the event, but for ourselves. And all of these things will help you in every aspect of your work. So many of you are planning events off of the side of your desk, or maybe you're the entrepreneur and you've got to put some kind of an event together. Maybe you're a volunteer committee and you've been doing these events forever and ever, and you're not sure why you're doing them. This process can be really valuable to be working through with your team. To break this down in a way that I think is going to make probably the most sense for you guys, and something that you can take forward. I love to see things that are sort of cyclical, that there's some iterations that can happen. Nothing happens overnight. I've been planning events now for 35 years, something like that. And I have had to work through this myself over and over again. So again, not just for my own career as an event planner and now as an event coach and strategist, but this idea of clarity shows up in all sorts of ways, because it might just be in one aspect of a project. It might be one part of an event. It might be with one of my event team members, for example. There might be a conversation that needs to happen overarching. So this might be with your development department and your IT department and your communications department and your PR people, where all of you really need to be on the same page. It doesn't mean that you're all working from the same playbook, because you're all including different things in that process. But this idea of getting really clear about how are you planning this event? Why does it matter? We'll go through the Clearview system, which is in your booklet. But clarity is going to help you, like we just talked about, gain freedom from being stuck. So the idea of sometimes it can be can stop you in your tracks. Sometimes it actually is something where you now, once you've gotten clear, you can start to see the freedom of, oh, there's the road, or the freedom of, oh, I feel like finally I don't have to have my knuckles sort of just gripping the steering wheel because I don't want to run off the road. There's a freedom to this. And there's something about when you get clear, how freedom is so important to, like I was talking about, to be able to find the skills that you need, for you to get the right ideas, and not just the right ideas, but that you are starting to pull all sorts of creative solutions, not just out of the air, but meeting with people, and the freedom to really start to apply different principles to what you're doing helps you to make new choices. So this idea of choices is so important, because when you are feeling stuck, or if you are on the ice, and I've been in accidents again in Manitoba, if you've been to the Whiteshell, those roads are just like there's S turns everywhere. I took a trip. I was helping out at a camp when I was 16. I think it was 16. My girlfriend's driving this little Chevy, guy friend in the back, and we're on one of these little S curves. And the idea, if you've been on those roads in the winter, there's a groove that happens. There's only room for two vehicles, but there's a groove that happens in the middle where you can stay off the ice, you stay on the groove, and you're going to be okay to get yourself to the main highway. So this idea of choices, my girlfriend was taking an S curve, and then coming from the other way was this really big truck, and there was nowhere to go. There was nowhere to go. He was coming straight at us. We're in this tiny little Chevy, and we didn't know. Like, she just reacted as fast as she could. She tried to pull out of the ruts, and what happened was the truck went right beside us, almost hitting us. But we were on this icy patch, and she just started spinning. And if you can imagine, we must have done like 10 or 20 rotations. We're in this amazing, beautiful area. It's the Whiteshell. So you've got a lot of trees and a lot of rocks and a lot of very sheer drops. And what happens was we just took all these turns, and it was inevitable that we just started rolling right off that embankment. And we must have rolled another 4 or 5 times down the embankment, lying, well, hanging, because we had our seatbelts on, hanging upside down. And we just didn't know what to do. So there was a big boulder on my side. There was a giant tree just on the other side. So we were locked in. My friend in the back felt that he could get out and get us out of there. And this idea, we all were okay in the end. It was hair raising, but this idea of when we are not clear of where we're going, we hit some kind of fog, or there's something happening, our choices are really limited. And so this idea of getting clear, having the freedom in how we see things, we've now got sort of a wider area to either move or to think about new parts of this trip. What would that look like? And we can make some choices around that. When we were spinning around on that ice, there was no choice. We were now at the mercy of the angels to try to, really keep ourselves somehow sane. And as we were upside down, and now we have to start to figure out, what do we do? When we're clear, when there's some freedom in the road, and we are able to make some choices, don't we all, not just that we want to be in control, but this idea of having the opportunity to make choices that will get us to, when I had the event goal at the top of the other sheet, when we can make some choices towards that goal, and it's going to make a difference, again, not just for us, but the people we are trying to serve, that's when it starts to matter. And sometimes this clarity, or the frustration, or the lack of clarity, is something we create, or we allow to happen, or we just don't take the time to move back. Like, if we were to look at that accident that I was in, and we were spinning out, and there was no choice, we weren't able to control anything. What if there was an opportunity for us to go back and look at our road and say, would there either be another way? Maybe that we have to take something out of the equation so we're not putting ourselves in danger. That's the importance of clarity, because there can be really serious, in that case, thank God weren't hurt, or nobody, we did go to the hospital, but there was no major injuries. When you're planning events with your teams, you want to make sure that you're clearing the way, so that there are good choices that can be made, and that is going to lead to really healthy action. So this idea of having room to move, you've got the freedom now, you can see clearly, you can see farther than just your nose. You're starting to make good choices on how your team is actually pulling these events off, and you're taking action. With now you've made some choices, but you're taking action on those choices in a way that really will affect the results, and that you will have a greater impact. The clarity is going to help you actually get to the end goal and connect even better with your customers or your donors or your group. And as always, we want to make sure that we're looking for improvement. So as we start to take action, not everything's going to work. That's just the reality of it. So you've now got clarity, there's some freedom that you can be moving, you've got some space, the road's clear, you're making good choices on maybe you're going to stop and take a hike over here, or maybe there's choices around people that are going to join you on the trip. But you're taking some actions that will lead you to your goal, and that you'll actually be reaching that goal faster, more efficiently. Your budget's going to be on track, but then you can make improvements. So if there are some things in these actions that you're like, oh, we could have done that a little bit better, we could have added something to that process, maybe we should have taken a break, and you can make those improvements. And so um, this process happens over and over and over again. And the idea of consistently increasing not just your knowledge and your skills, but that you're making these improvements to increase your clarity, maybe for the same project, but there might be another aspect that you could be looking at. Maybe you do this with your team dynamics. And then you feel like, oh, well, maybe we really need to take another step back and look at our processes. A lot of people are looking at their IT right now, and how do they move their events online? Maybe you're just feeling like foggy and unclear, and you've made some decisions that have been kind of gummed up. Well, the idea of getting really clear on that, take yourself through this process, and it's going to really help you. So the last piece of this session that I want to talk about is what I call the clear view process. So this is something I created a couple of years ago. This is actually, this shows up in Candy as a Clearview consultation, a 1 hour with me. We can walk through these things for your organization or your group as you're planning events. But this is going to help you as a check. So there's going to be a filter. If you go through the V, I, E, and W, really, as you step back, you're going to start to understand, how do we make sure that we're really prepared to plan well? So this happens, these 4 areas happen before you actually bring out the spreadsheets, before you start mapping out those milestones, before you start putting people in different roles. This happens before all of that. So we're going to jump in. I'm going to actually share my screen with you, and you're going to be able to see the 4 areas of the Clearview system. So we're going to explore what clarity can mean for your planning using this Clearview system. So your message matters, your product has a purpose, your idea makes an impact, but before you can plan with purpose, you must prepare the way for success. Imagine your connections deepening with your customers, your donors, your members, or your group, and imagine your efforts gaining more attention with key allies and new friends, and imagine your venture increasing in momentum with less effort. So imagine impacting more people with your product, message, or idea. So using this Clearview system, all of those things are possible. And so this idea of approaching your connections with a clear view, this is where we can go beyond just sort of muddling through or kind of barely making it over over the ice and the bumps in the road, where we can see clearly where we want to go and how we're going to get there. So we want to start first with V, and V stands for vision. So if you can see that on the booklet sheet there in the chat below, you're going to see the link, and that link is going to get you to this booklet. So you will be able to follow along, make some notes, take this to your team. And if you want to book the Clearview consultation, I'm happy to walk through this with you as well. So V starts is with vision. So this idea of a purposeful look back and a well-defined forward vision is the foundation of a successful event. So I have three areas. I'm just going to kind of roll through those really quick in this session. But the vision keys are your history, your wins, and your purpose. So looking at what does this look like for your history, we in the Clearview consultation, and we do a whole Clearview day. It's a whole workshop that we do for the day. But the idea of looking back at your history, and I do this if you are an event planning leader as well, we do strat sessions around where have you been? How have you been showing up? Where are you finding that light and that incredible purpose for the work that you do? What lights you up? So looking at your history, both the wins that we talk about here, and also some of the things that you may never do again. So the idea of having that clear vision will lead you to purpose. So really giving you a strong purpose, not just for this one event, but as an organization, what has your history been with connecting with your donors or your customers? What have those wins been? How do we start to dissect what is working? And then purpose is really taking all of that and really starting to get clear on not just a purpose statement, which we also do, but how do you then start to live out that purpose in the work that you're accomplishing here? So having a really strong vision matters a lot. Then the second one is I for investment. And when I do this session, quite often some people say this is all about the money. And who wants to talk about money right away? Like we're going to feel it out, and we do have a budget, but we're not sure how much we want to put into this particular event or this project or this campaign. What I am getting at when I talk about investment, this is determining your investment up front because it's going to shape the use of your event resources. So investment can mean the people involved. It can mean the time that you want to take on putting this all together. What kind of energy do you have for this? When I was talking about fire earlier, do you have just a little bit of energy, a little bit of fire? You might feel like this is really the right thing to do, but are you ready to invest what you need in your energy, in your time, and in your money to make this happen? And money doesn't always have to be the money that sort of pie in the sky that we're looking at, that $50,000, and then we can move forward with this event. Investment means that there is what you have today. Is it enough to get you to a goal that is truly meaningful and that you will be planning with purpose, moving towards that goal? So the investment is all of it. Anytime that we choose to get into a new relationship, take on another role or another job, we do this internal calculation on what time do I have, how much energy do I have, is it a good fit for me, and does the money make sense? And there's the same process that we need to be doing before we start planning events. That's your investment. The next one is for E, is for engagement. And engagement, I say here, engage your team, partners, and the public before, during, and after your event. So this, sometimes people are saying, well, we need that event because we have to build this audience for something, or we want to get a bunch of customers around this. And they're kind of looking at this really, again, in the fog. They're looking at so many aspects that really they're not sure, or the people that they're not sure who they want to talk to. The amount of times that I've heard some teams say that they just want everyone to participate and everyone to purchase their product. We, and you probably know, that really, that becomes its own foggy space, because not really knowing who you want to engage with, why you want to engage with them, will be felt on the other side as well. So if you go out just to everybody and just say, oh, you should be purchasing a ticket for our new training, we've just put it out, it's going to be amazing. This idea of not knowing who you're talking to and why they would care. The reality is, I did a workshop last week, and we talked a lot about who cares, literally, who cares about the work you do. It might be really valuable for the community, but you need to learn and do your homework on who really wants to be engaged with the work that you do. And those will be people, when I had the road there, those will be the people that will be with you in the fog. They are going to be with you as you move through the fog, and they are going to lead you right through and be with you on that journey to really get your message or your product or your idea out there, and will connect others to it. So engagement is so important. This one, if you don't have true engagement yet, you might have to back up and do some work. So if you don't really have the right donors in place right now, or you've probably heard of donor fatigue, if you've been going back to the same donors over and over again, and they're just like, they just want to send you a check, or maybe not even that anymore, but you need to know who's engaged. And if they're not, if they're truly your audience, why are they not? Before you start to set another date for another event, make sure that you are engaged with the right people, that you're taking the time, that you've got the right audience that you're talking to, the right message for them, and that in the promotion of that, in getting that message out, that they are not only going to be engaged with that message, but they're going to help you share it. Really important. And the last one is hard for some of us. The last one is hard for some of us to really get our heads wrapped around, because this idea of W being worth. So is it worth it to run this event? And if we were live with you guys on the other side and we were having this dialogue, this is one of the sticker points for many, many teams, because you might put something in motion and not truly evaluate if it's worth it. There might be somebody that starts, and I sometimes use golf tournaments as an example. Somebody started a golf tournament because they were passionate about golf, because there was some kind of a need in the community. They attached the golf to the need. But then what happens? What happens when that person retires? What happens if that person is now on to something else? Or what happens when there was a lot of worth put on something, but now there isn't, like I said earlier, the skills and the ideas and that fire to pull it off. And people just start plugging in the date yearly. It just becomes an annual event, annual event, annual event. And nobody asks, is it worth it? And I have worked with some pretty amazing clients that have asked this really hard question. Is it worth going back there again, running that event, booking that date in the same way? Now, it doesn't mean that you need to dump the golf tournament or do that same thing that you've done over and over, not do the same thing you've done over and over again. There might be something to that, and it might be worth it for you to continue it. Maybe there's a lot of excitement. Maybe you're building some good friends here. Maybe that you are truly making some money, but it just needs to be tweaked. But this idea of really evaluating, is it worth it? So I say here, how do you and your stakeholders shoot for, measure, and adjust for event success? So this idea of aiming for something, measuring that, whatever it is, project, event, campaign, and adjusting is so important. And so in doing that, we can actually take a look at, where are you aiming? How are you measuring, whether it's success or whether it's getting to the finish line, whatever you're measuring in that event or project. And then how are you adjusting? And how will you adjust if things, need some adjustment, so that this becomes worth it? There's nothing worse than there's nothing worse than when you get halfway through planning and you realize, I don't know that this was worth our time. And I would guess that if you have gone through this process where you have, with maybe starting an event, getting in the fog, and now you're kind of not sure what to do, you're not making great decisions, maybe there's some discourse within the team. Quite often it happens because you haven't evaluated if it was worth it in the first place. It was set in motion, and now your boat is setting sail, and you've got to make this work. The money's already invested, people have already bought tickets. But being able to do this before you put your ticket link up, before you promote your event, understanding if it's worth it. It might not mean not worth it at all, ever. It might mean not worth it at this time. It might not mean, or it might mean not worth it in this way. It might mean not worth it with this particular group of people or team or sponsors. you need to evaluate what is going to make all of that work and time and energy and investment and engagement worth it. So this is a really important one here. Um, Download the booklet. So at the bottom of this YouTube video, there is the link where you can find the booklet. It kind of talks through not just these 4 points, but what the keys are for each of them. And if you are interested, I have just put up on my calendar some opportunities for you guys to actually link through and get a full hour consultation. So it's called the Clear View. Oh, I need my Sharpie here. The Clearview consultation is something that I've just put up now because I think it's really important um, to get specific and clear for you or your team on all of these 4 areas. And so what I've done is made a free hour for you where you can link through the email, sorry, the website address is CandyConsulting.ca and it's /clarity. This is where you're going to find a link to get your free 1 hour consultation with me to go through this with your team. And we actually, I think I had said that earlier, but we actually have a full day team workshop that we can be working through this. And there's lots of great activities and reflections and a chance for you to get really clear. And taking this as something, again, this isn't just for one particular event, but taking this process and reapplying it to a different event, reapplying it to a new campaign, because all of this really helps you make it through. When we were talking about that road, we'll go right back to our initial story. When you are feeling in the fog, when you are frustrated, when you are not sure what's coming next, getting to this event goal, getting to the final day, moving on from this day with purpose to another connecting opportunity and another connecting opportunity and another one. That's the exciting part. That's where this becomes really exciting, is so important. So I would love to support you in that. Again, the website is CandyConsulting.ca /clarity. And there's a button there that you can actually book your hour with me. So thank you so much, you guys, for being part of this. I'm sorry that I had no one to have that dialogue with today. Next time we will be back. This is February the 10th. We're going to be talking about Candy's short guide to motivating your event planning team. So this idea, we talked a little bit about that today, but we're going to really dig into what does teamwork actually mean? I know I've posted it in the past, but this idea of teamwork makes the dream work, and that is true. But really, what does it mean as leaders in running our events to make sure that our teams are not just taken care of, because that's one part of it, but there is this motivation factor of keeping them really excited and engaged and working within their strengths moving forward. So that's going to be on February the 10th. Love to see you guys there. Any questions, feel free to reach out to me. My best email for this one would be guides@candyconsulting.ca. Let me know what you thought about the session today, and hopefully we will see you again.